get started. Super excited about this one. And thank you for coming here to the Boston Startup Week. Hopefully, you guys have been getting something out of these sessions so far. Yes, yes, no. Hopefully so. Okay, so we just have one mission with this conference, and we just want to bring together the entire startup community. No matter what department you are, no matter what stage you're in, um, this I actually just moved into this area, and being able to get around so many like-minded people, people that are innovating, people that are taking risks, people that are putting processes in place is really been amazing for me to see. My name is Jacob. I'm a founder of a property management company called Proctor. Um, but before we get started, I wanted to thank specifically Suffolk University for donating their space. It's because of people like them that we're even able to do anything that we're able to do. Um, so if you're interested in exploring entrepreneurship, they have a ton of opportunities, a ton of programs. They have a table in the vendor hall on the fifth floor. So if you want to learn anything about that or how you can support their journey, because they have a bunch of students coming through. So if you're more seasoned and you have something that maybe that you can impart on students, they also have opportunities for that. But without further ado, I'll hand it off to Amber and we'll go ahead and get started.
Well, hello everyone. The topic that we are going to discuss today is how technology is revolutionizing healthcare, question mark. And we'll begin with understanding healthcare. We'll talk a little bit about the regulatory landscape in healthcare, how it inhibits adoption, what kind of challenges you might face when you are using technology in healthcare, particularly with respect to the regulatory concern. At the same time, what's happening with agentic AI. And we'll be having an amazing panel, which has a combination of operator, founder, investor. So we have a good mix among everyone. So the first one to go, a quick introduction about me, of course. I'm Amber Nigam. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Basis AI, and we do prior authorization for health systems and health insurance companies. We raised a round a couple of years ago from the largest healthcare company, Eli Lilly, the largest health system, Mayo Clinic, and for the past couple of years, we've been working with insurance companies, CMS, and certain health systems as well. So I'll go ahead and ask Ali, who is the Chief Customer and Growth Officer at Henry Schein One, to briefly introduce herself and her company.
Great. Hey everyone, great to be here. I'm Ali Hyatt. So I think I'm the operator on the panel, but I've gotten actually to do a lot of different things. So I was a founder of not in the health tech space of a marketing software startup. Then before I came to my prior company, I spent 7 years at a company called Amwell, sort of squarely in the health tech space. I joined it when it was about 30 million in revenue, and then was with it leading marketing and then our health systems business through an initial public offering in 2020. It's a telehealth company, so it's super fun to do that right in the middle of a pandemic. So I got to do the scaling side of it. And now I've been at Henry Schein One for about 3 years, leading all of our customer-facing sales, marketing, customer experience, support, et cetera. It is, you may not have heard of it, but it's the largest dental software company. So interestingly, dental is doing a lot of stuff in AI and otherwise. We're a joint venture between Internet Brands, which owns WebMD and Cars Direct, and then Henry Schein, which is a public medical and dental supply company. So yeah, really happy to be here and share a range of experiences.
Well, thank you so much, Ali. And then we'll have Kristen Nichols, who's the co-founder and chief clinical officer of Imago Rehab. If you could go ahead and introduce yourself,
Sure.
That would be great.
Thanks. So great to be here today. My name is Kristen. I'm an occupational therapist by background. I've been a clinician working in stroke recovery for the last 18 years. And so I spent the first half of my career working in the clinic and sort of experiencing the clinical excellence side and learning how do we do this really well, and also experiencing the frustrations of clinicians and patients and their families and kind of seeing both sides. And then I did about 4 years in a Harvard engineering lab working on wearable robots. And that experience plus my doctorate turned into a telehealth startup. So we serve mostly patients with stroke. We have other conditions we help as well, but mostly patients with stroke. And we've gone from just me doing self-pay here in Massachusetts to coverage across 9 states, and we offer PTOT and speech. And so we actually, if you go on my LinkedIn today, we just got acquired, and we're rolling into another portfolio, kind of a sister company to ours, by the same lead investor. And so we're going to be kind of rolling into their team and having the support of some of what they do kind of blend into what we do. So that's exciting.
Oh, congratulations.
I'm happier today than I have been.
Didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
And then we have Eugen, who's the associate at Taiwan Global Angels. So if you could introduce yourself, Eugen.
Yeah, sure. I am Eugene. I am an associate in Taiwan Global Angels. We are angel clubs. We have more than 16 angels in our clubs, which is medical hospital owners and a factory and also the operators. So we are very focused on the medical device healthcares in the United States. Fortunately, we also just closed our first funds in the United States. So we're going to active investments right here, especially in San Francisco and Boston. My personal background is undergrad in supply chain management and consultants. So I'm helping the startups to understanding how to build up the systems and knowing what is the best of solutions for their manufacturing, R&D, and also kind of FDA regulators. So that's very happy to be here and sharing experience today. Thank you.
Thank you for being on the panel, Eugen.
Yeah.
So I'll kickstart with an essential question as we think about healthcare and we think about different compliance and security strategy. Some of those are extremely important and they are required to keep the data secure about the patients and so on and so forth. At the same time, some of them could also add to the barriers of technology adoption. So my first question would be to Ali, and if you could maybe talk about in your own work, what have you seen, the kind of compliance and security measures your company takes, and do you feel they are barrier to technology adoption, or do you feel they are actually required, or maybe there's a hybrid strategy there?
Yeah, I think great question, and I'm sure we have a mix of people like in startups, doing startups and in other companies. So from the perspective of my company, and I would say personally too, like it's critical, like anything health tech, like it has to be sort of at the forefront. I'm in dental software now, as you may be familiar with from visiting your dentist or knowing dentists. It's not like dentists and dental practices are the most savvy at like keeping patient data secure. And actually, if you go into a dental office, you usually find that they have all their passwords like on Post-it notes, in front of the computer. It's not their expertise. So it's absolutely critical. We have a very active API program and exchange. So we actually work with a lot of startups through that, some in the Boston area. And it is critical that companies come in securely through that API program, because then we know that you don't have other bots or hackers kind of coming into the system, because we have all the patient data, right, from anyone who goes to a dental office overall. So I'd say it's critical. From my experience at Amwell before, doing more of a scaling company, it was also just critical to have that, because this is the type of thing that can take down a company and change healthcare. Part of Optum last year, like literally, took down millions of patient data when someone got in, essentially through a screen sharing software. And so those threats are really real and out there. So I would say it's like, critical to do so. And oftentimes you just need to make sure you have the expertise, because this stuff is so rapidly changing, I think, especially with AI, that it's just critical to make sure you have the people, keeping you up to date on all this stuff.
And a quick follow-up question on that. Sometimes those compliance, let's say initiatives, they take half a year, 1 year, so on and so forth. So when you are a young startup, how do you think about I wouldn't say bypassing the system, but at the same time, you as a startup need to keep the lights running and electricity going as well. So what would your advice be for those startups?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think, I mean, using the resources, like, clearly there's stuff as part of Startup Boston Week, but in the Boston area, there's things like Mass Challenge, and, different accelerators and organizations that connect startups to best practices. So I'd say getting involved in those, because there's just, a lot of stuff going on in the health tech space. You got to be connected to those. And then I would say like focusing, right? So if you're a startup or smaller company, you can't do everything to everyone. And so there might be different security considerations in different product areas, or different, units of medical overall. So ensuring you can stay focused so you don't have to spread yourself too thin to think about compliance in every area, I think is really important.
Absolutely. And Kristen, the next one is for you. I know we have talked about technology adoption, the barriers to technology adoption versus how do you co-develop certain products. And you have had an amazing experience in that, given that you're grounded in research and the work that you have done was essentially converted into a startup and so on and so forth. So would you like to also talk about how has AI accelerated that process? Or do you feel AI is more of a barrier as of now in healthcare?
That's a great question. Do I think AI is a barrier or an accelerant? Depends on what you're trying to do with AI, because AI, what we do in therapy is based on the choices we make to work with the patient is based on our education as a therapist, as well as bringing in these factors that each patient is different. So if I go to a ChatGPT and ask it, which we've done for fun and to learn, ask it, what should I do with this patient? We're going to get only information that someone else has already generated. So we're only going to get, we actually see things like, do finger wiggles with the patient. What are finger wiggles? That's not something that we want to do with the patient. So we're only going to get, right now, this basic information that someone else has already stated, has put out in the world and said, these are the things one does in therapy. So if we're looking for learning how to do something new, right now the tools don't exist yet in an AI type of way, so that it can tell us what to do with patients. So that's something that does not exist, that we are working to create. How can we take all these different factors about a patient that we do in our head, and we learn about them and learn all these factors, and then we have to personalize care to them. So it's not something that currently exists, but it's something that we would like to have AI help us. And the way that we do use AI right now are for creating the basis of something, creating a platform that then you have to still add all the important parts to. So there's certain tasks that we absolutely use AI to generate a basis. Help me write a proposal for a conference or something like that. Help me generate, just get my ideas out on paper, and then we still have to add a lot of information to it. So it's neither stopping us nor fixing all the problems in this certain point.
Absolutely. And a quick follow-up on that, not to be too provocative, but recently OpenAI was sued for the conversation it had with a child and parents of the child who unfortunately passed on. What do you think about that instance? And it's not just one particular child. This was one case that was brought forth. There might be like several different cases that we might not even know about. And they are conversing with ChatGPT, or they are conversing with Claude and so on and so forth. So what's your stance on all these large language models giving advice that typically highly trained individuals give? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'd say my take on that is that the company who's willing to have AI chat with their patients needs to have a lot of guardrails around what is allowed to be discussed in that conversation, where they're saying, if this topic comes up, they need to be routed to a person. If this topic comes up, that's allowed. So just having these guardrails in place, so that when really sensitive topics come up, you're not allowing AI to make whatever decision it feels like making. That's something that is really important when we're doing clinical care, especially pediatrics, especially like our service, people with disabilities, but people with cognitive disabilities. We're really needing to also make sure that they know that they are talking to a bot, not a person.
So essentially what you're saying is thoughtful guardrailing is what is required, something which, a concept which essentially many tech companies are unaware of. And many companies that have been brought in the Congress and in different forums have almost vocally admitted to that. So almost like a layer of guardrails for health tech is required if you're using some of those models, is what you're saying.
Right.
All right. Thank you. And the next question is for you, Jen. Given that you work with a lot of startups and you have a lot of influx of, I'm assuming, startups as well, what are some of the innovative ways you're seeing health tech startups adopting technology, especially as we talk about different versions of AI, agentic AI, and generative AI? What have you seen as some of the most innovative ways in which companies have adopted technology?
Yeah. So the AI is booming right now, as everyone know, especially these 2 days, how crazy over the stock markets, right? And then AI is definitely the trend of the futures. From my experience, we definitely very focused on the AI solutions in the healthcare and also medical devices. One of the most successful startups I find out is also right here is Figure A. It's MIT alumni and also funding by MIT 14 firms. They're doing very well for the physical recovering therapies. They combine with the physical tools to help the entities to recover their muscle injury. And they also focus of their numbers based on the observations of the data from the patients. So they are not only for the recall for the how is the situation of the muscles, but they can also focus about when will they recover. So these numbers will be very important for the users because as the exercising users, they can understanding when they can back to the court, they can know how much the revenue, maybe they can, as a team, they can know how much revenue they're going to build up and then how much money they can reduce the cost. From the investor side, we always want to know how is it available for these kind of AI or solutions can create the differences. And then from the investor side, we also very focused on the technologies can change people's life, right? So as a very early stage investors, we are very bright to see how is the potentials increase and also the revenue and also reduce the cost in the futures too. So we are looking forward to have more these kind of data solutions to create the different users in our daily life.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing those thoughts. And now, moving beyond startups and also thinking about as you scale a company. And this question is for you, Ali, as you have been working as a chief commercial and growth officer at a large company. What do you feel as you move beyond the startup stage, even though this is Startup Boston Week, but as you prepare to become more mature and so on and so forth, what are some of the strategies that you can adopt, and how can AI be a value add in that?
Yeah, it's a big question there. I think there's, yeah, having done the startup through to much larger company, there's different stages. And so in the beginning of a startup, it's like, generally is all scrappy, right? Like you need people as you, scale, as I'm sure Kristen knows too. It's like you need people that can just jump in and do a lot of stuff and like learn and get it done. And then as you get a little bigger, you need to find some of the right people with focuses in certain areas. And so like bringing in some of that expertise, but I still think you need people that are like, they're willing to jump in, right? It can't be that it doesn't always work when someone's like only come from a larger company, to be honest. I found when I was at Amwell, there was sort of this tipping point at which you had to make things like the go-to-market more consistent. So there needed to be a structure in place to enable salespeople, for example. And so getting those things in place, there needed to be consistent pricing. It wasn't just all like, people throw out a contract and that's how it works. And that's like a sort of initial tipping point. I think related to, and then I've seen that obviously now I'm at a company that's like 2,500 people globally. we've acquired so many different companies, we have different markets, and so even more so, you have to get those structures in place. I think on the AI front, like the real positive, and this is true of anyone really. I was with like a CEO of a very, very large company the other day who was saying that he was using ChatGPT over the weekend to look at potential acquisitions, and to analyze like based off the web, different data on them. And so I think actually like what AI has done is made everything so easy to get. Like it's kind of all at your fingertips. Like you can make a model just from widely available data, on the internet, like really quickly. And so it's made a lot of these things much more attainable. And I think as a startup, if you have like, 3 people, right, you can so easily find templates, for like a pitch deck or, a pricing structure or things like that. And so I think using all that is something that can be super helpful. I'm interested to see like, does everything start looking the same, right, when people get the stuff? But I think, as AI, it learns kind of different versions of stuff. I mean, I personally have been, trying to get all the AI stuff to like, learn, and working with prompts for myself too. But just the efficiency that I think you can gain is really key.
Absolutely. Thanks for delineating that growth and maturity curve that you typically have when you are a small organization going into that growth phase. Thanks for also mentioning a very specific example. It also shows, even though the barriers to access of information have reduced, it also means sometimes, at least based on my understanding, when you are asking GPT a certain question, or Claude for that matter, and you have a certain point of view, and you ask it to tweak it to your point of view, it kind of becomes an echo chamber. So something to be mindful of as you are using these large language technologies, that you're not, again, going into the same problem that existed long before adoption of any technology, and it kind of remains the same in a way as well.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Is like everyone talks about the echo chamber thing and how important that is. I think you can really easily use it though to like, okay, like give me the other point of view, so like what would someone say back, and think about it that way as a tool.
Absolutely. And the next one is for Kristen. This one is, as you think about technology adoption, as you think about different barriers that might exist in that, and as you also think about co-development, something that we initially touched upon, where do you feel are the bottlenecks which are not technology-based, that are more domain-specific, and how do you overcome those barriers which are alien to technology, which is more about just understanding, working on first principles, and so on and so forth? What's your take on that?
Sure. So I think an example here would be you're having a first call with a group, or you're meeting a group at a conference, and they say, well, tell me about your solution. And you might be tempted to just jump into your 30-second spiel and say, this is, and you give your usual spiel. But another option here is to start by asking the person, well, tell me about yourself. Tell me what your job title is. Tell me about the company that you work for. Then you can change the description of what you're doing to suit the background that the person is coming from. So the pitch that I give to a room of neurologists is not the same pitch I give to the room of case managers, and it's not the same that I give to a payer at Blue Cross. So it's the message changes based on who's listening to it. And so if you can co-develop something, instead of trying to insert yourself, then the tool that you've created into a health system and saying, we've made something great, it's here. You really need to understand, what is it that is causing them a problem? Is it they want to employ telehealth, but their patients don't know how to do it. So do they need more training? Do they need it to be easy to use? Or is there some other issue? So if if all you've made is you're just bringing your hammer to the world of nails, then people might be more resistant to the tool that you've made, as opposed to if you really understand the problem that they have and you help them to see the points that will help solve their problem, they're going to be more receptive to maybe the things that they're not as comfortable with, or if you can modify some things to suit the problem that they really have.
Got it. Thanks so much for sharing that thought. And the next one is for Yujin, and this one is based on uh, what problems you are seeing right now that technology companies are solving, which are super exciting for you as an investor? And when you evaluate those companies, how do you think about, yes, these are technology-based problems and they should solve using technology versus the problems that are more administrative in nature and it requires maybe some sort of policy understanding and so on and so forth? So that's one part of the question. The other part is, how do you think about, given that you are a group of angels, how do you think about following the lead investors and what kind of information do you seek in the investment thesis?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the questions. Well, as investors, the most importance that we seeing for the founder is the empathies. We are very, very fortunate to have the first steps to listen the founder's story, especially the founders, their family or themselves encounter this kind of disease. They try to using their background knowledges and technologies to overcome this disease. So the most motivative story is from the founder themselves. And then we are very, very willing to stay with them and also in their shoes to help them to solve these problems. And then the founders always start from the problems and then what is the background story and what is the solutions and what is their team look like. How can they solve the problems and with the results they need. We are very, very fortunate to know more about what is the results they need. What can we help as angel clubs, especially in very early stage. We are pretty much between C to Series B. So we can be part of the operators, part of their board members, and then bring maybe the doctors to be their champion co-pilot programs, right? So that will be very exciting for us to get involved. And then as investors, of course, we have things not only for the hopes, for the hope for the futures, but we also have to think about the risk. So that will be the different concepts from the founders who see the opportunities in the future, but we also have to consider about the risk. So for us, the most important to our thesis, the first one will be the serious founders. They know how they build out the business. They be success in the futures, but even more better if they fail before, and then they find the solutions. They learning from the failure, and then they know what can they do much better. Second is that the team backgrounds, how they build up the team together. What is the best the team we have been seeing is that they are senior high classmates. They've been co-work together in a company. They have the basic understanding for each other. They are one of the team, one of the member who is good at business operation. The other is very good at technologies. They want to be together to create something new and then revolutions for the futures in the medical devices or healthcare. The third one will be the industries. They will need to know what is the market size, what kind of the old markets they want to replace, what kind of the new business they're going to create the markets right here. So there is the best of three items we are seeing right now as investor thesis focused on the founders.
Thanks so much for sharing that investment thesis. I really love the point that you mentioned about mission-driven founders thinking about um, empathy as like investors thinking about empathy and so on and so forth. That's really nice to hear. And some of the experiences that we have also had, for instance, when I was growing my team from 2 startup founders to a team of 20, 25 people who we have right now, each and every individual who we have hired, I would have had a very informal discussion. Of course, after we have had a couple of discussions before I speak with them, but the whole perspective is to figure out who are the people who will stick with the ship, even though when we do not have the right, let's say, funds in certain case and scenarios. So when you are an early stage founder, you have to think of all those scenarios. And as we are moving from a very early stage startup to a growth stage company, I think I'm almost like unwilling to let go of that control which comes with the growth. And I think on that part, Ali, given your experience, how have you managed to lead such a large team or a large company? And how do you think about when you hire people who are outside of first 100, first 1,000 circle? How do you still preserve the culture?
Yeah. So that will be the totally different mindset and then also skill sets for the persons. Some people are very good at it, build up from the scratch, from 0 to 1, and 1 to 10, 10 to hundreds, and the 10, 100 to thousands. So each of a stage that you have find out some people with this experience. There is one of our portfolio called Portrait Star. It's robotics automations drinking machines in San Francisco. Their founder is very good at building the business from the scratch to hundreds. However, if they want to build up team from 100 to 1,000 and then 10,000, they need an advisor and experienced people to helping to understanding what kind of resource and the structures of a company, especially the org, they're going to build up. So the most important is the board member. What kind of board members they can bring into the resource. So we are actually their Series B lead investor. We help them build up the supply chain, R&D, and also their machines. And then handing to the next round, Series C, is their lead investor is the champions of the Filipino restaurant group leaders, help them to build up the go-to-market strategy and the sales increase of their ARR for the next round. So the most important is that, as I say, is that to find out the group of board members to help them to bring to the next stage. A second one is find some people already have experience in this kind of a giant company. So they're just looking for, just find out one of the CFO who help this kind of a robotic company before to go to the IPO. So hiring these kind of experienced talents to help them to growth. Not only for the founders to hold all the resource or all the power in one company. So knowing how to authority and then put a different power to the best talents is very important. So when we are reviewing the board member and also the founder teams, we will we were very curious about how can you hire some people more than you. That will be very crucial. How can you attract this kind of talents to join your team? And joining the team is not only for the salary, not only for the monies, but as founders, especially for early stage, the versions and missions, how you're going to change the world is very important. So how you're storytelling, not only for the investor, but also for your team members. Then the other one will be the episodes, how you're using the structure, the options to attract these kind of talents, the future of your company and going to growth. That's all combined together.
Yeah, and I would say how I always think about talent, and I have a team of about 1,000 now, is you're always thinking about hiring people that are better than you in certain areas, right? So it's never about micromanaging. It's about determining, what skill sets and experiences you're missing, and you want people, right, that can be partners to you. So that's how I think about my leaders. I really align with what you were saying, Eugen, around you need people that can attract. So that's a really important quality for a founder, right? In the initial stages, a lot of it is around passion, but they need to be able to attract people to that mission. And then also, we all know founders, and I'm sure there are many of them here in the audience, founders can be really passionate, sometimes stubborn, right? So you need, in the beginning, right, people that can allow that passion to go, but then also be able to guide, in certain directions. For a sales team in the health tech space, you're going to need someone that understands how to work health systems or health plans. They're complex. Or you need, someone who leads engineering that understands the compliance things and all, the regulatory stuff that comes into it. So I'd say being able to attract the right people is really important. And then also, again, understanding the scale. There are many startups that have, gone and hired someone from, United Healthcare, some really big company, right? Because they're oh, they have the connections, so they'll help us bring them in. And it doesn't always work out, right? Because that person isn't willing to, they're not at that stage. It's not, they're expecting lots of people to help them. And I'm not saying in every case, but, in some cases, I think that's really, really important to think about. And then I think as you scale, you just always have to think about the next layer. So we just did a talent planning exercise last week at in my company, and the whole point is like everyone should have like, 3 successors in their current role. So there might be someone that's ready in the next year. There are others that are ready in the next 3 to 5 years, and then always thinking about those people and what do they need, to move up into it. Because the reality is actually you want to make yourself, not needed because you move on to the next thing, and there's lots of people there to kind of take that space.
Such interesting observations. I feel one thing about stubbornness, I feel if you're a founder, if you're not stubborn enough, then you lose out certain opportunities because you give up on anything and everything. But if you are too stubborn, you might not have or attract the right talent, and they might feel like, oh, this is a very authoritative organization, very top down, so on and so forth. So some sort of combination and middle path probably works.
Yep.
And you also talked about successor planning. In an early stage startup, you wish and you have so many gaps that you are running to just fill those gaps. And it's almost like I heard someone say something about startups are all about building the planes while you're trying to fly them. So thanks so much for sharing all the thought. Next question would be for Kristen. And this is on, as you think about different competitive landscape, and as you think about your company has a lot of competitors per se, they have access to new information almost. As we think about large language models, generative AI, how do you stay on top of what they are doing? And of course, you would want to stay in your swim lane. At the same time, given how access of knowledge has changed, do you feel the need do you feel the need to first of all redefine the way you think about competition? And if so, what are some of the innovative ways you have adopted in your own company?
Yes, we spy on them. Not really. Something that we have done from the beginning, even when we were still at Harvard and hadn't left yet, at that time, the focus of what we were doing was more about this robotic tool. So when we look at that robotic tool and we look at the competitors that are already on the market, and you create a competitive landscape grid, and you say, okay, ours does A, B, C, D, and E, and this competitor does A, B, and E, and there's a gap there, there's a difference. Is that a necessary difference? Are we creating bells and whistles on this tool that don't need to be there, or are we really creating value by having differentiators? So that's something we've done now as a technology-enabled care delivery service, where that doesn't have a specific competitor. That's unusual. But so what we do is compare ourselves to the traditional service. We compare ourselves to other technology tools. So our competitive landscape grid has gotten a lot bigger. And so we have to kind of figure out how we are similar and different to lots of different groups. And then we engage with those groups too. So I do panels with people. I do joint presentations with groups to err on the side of friendlier competition or discussion, so that we can learn from each other, but not have we don't want to make it the same, and we want to compete still. We want to differentiate, but we still want to know what's happening. And so that's, you read their papers and you follow them on LinkedIn, and you kind of, I said spy as a joke, but you do have to be aware. That's part of what I do, is stay very up to date on what they're doing. And then you have to keep track and say, okay, they're providing this service that we don't provide, but that would be good for us too. And is that something that we could also do? So you really do have to just stay on top of what other people are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you are starting a company, sometimes you're defining that box that will essentially fit you. And sometimes that box needs to be even sub-box. So all you're doing is studying a bunch of companies and figuring out where your niche or moat might lie. And that's kind of a never-ending process as you become bigger, you grow, you have a lot of people, so on and so forth. You're always expanding. You're always in that growth mindset, growth setup. So thanks for sharing that perspective. And the next question is for you, Jen. I'm also being mindful of how much time we have. But given that you have worked with a lot of founders and you have seen how they think about competition, and they think about their own differentiation, their own moat, so on and so forth. Who are the best founders? You don't have to go into the details of like saying, oh, X is the best founder, but what are some of the instances you can share about when founders knew about the market, they knew about the risk, and they had also de-risked or created a de-risking framework like we talked about? Could you share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So the most of founder I encounter, they have the most of them have the technical background. So they are very experienced in development or R&D their products. I'm seldom to encounter that's the founders who only know the business model. Okay, so very focused on the technology because from our understandings, that only the tech can differentiate from each other, and then they can build up their own moat. It's very important as an investor to reviewing as a risk. So we will usually start from how is their dispute their patents look like, how they going to build up their patent path in the futures. We even have our own consultants to for help us to due diligence their patents numbers and then how they can planning around the world because the medical devices not only sold in the US, of course. FDA is not the only solutions. They also have the Europe, CE, and also Asia, in China, in Japan, so many different areas. But also important is that they have to know where they're going to do. We're going to put their go-to-market strategy in the next 3 to 5 years. So as a founder, as a person I encounter, there are three most important personality I feel very important. The first of all is understanding the technologies, how to differentiate from each other. Sometimes they definitely spy other products. They re-engineering or anti-engineer of the others' products, but then they know what is the differentiates, and then sometimes even can co-work together. I have been encountered one of founder. He share everything with their competitors, and then they become the team member together. They build up these two companies and then one acquire each other. So there will be kind of build up the markets together rather than compete and then beat each other to the diet. And then what is the venture look like is that we build up the team together, we build out the market together rather than acquire to eat all the markets from the one product. A second one will be the kind of honest, because the venture is the minority investors. We are not acquired. So we trust this team and also the founders very much. So everything that you told us, we will assume that you're telling something's real. And then when we do the due diligence, if we find something that's different from the founders speaking, and then they told us, the deal is broken immediately. Not only for these deals, for this person. Because serious founders, especially very important for the ventures, because when you build up the trust, reputation in before, and when you do the next business, we are expect you're going to have bigger and bigger business or markets in the futures. That is how you build up the business look like this way. With the supplier, with the customers, with the investors, all the relationships that is all the rakers. The second one is definitely be honest. The third one is empathy. One is I always have to speak is empathy, because when you have empathies, that you are understanding how do you communicate with your key persons. Key persons, for example, like your customers, they are your investors, and also some people you want to hire as a talents. So the three personalities I feel it's very important for early stage founders going to have.
Thanks so much for sharing the thought. And we have close to 1 minute. So if someone can provide a closing thought on something unobvious that you have learned as an operator, as a founder, or an investor, and anyone who wants to volunteer can please go ahead and share the thought. And before we open it for the broader Q&A.
I'll just say one thing, and I think it was like maybe a question we didn't get to that I think is relevant to this audience. The healthcare in general, I think, as everyone knows, and as even just as being a patient, is really complicated, especially in the US. And as you're navigating, particularly in the startup world, there's things that happen. I'm sure you're used to this. Like health systems, like always want to do pilots, especially like academic medical centers. So it's like knowing that happens it is in like it's just one of those helpful things to know. At the same time, you have to be able to like show repeatable revenue, like as I'm sure you're used to looking at. So figuring out how you can do that, because it's very easy to like give everything away at first. On the payer side, which is the other sort of big part of healthcare, they're really complicated to navigate and there's really long sales cycles. And so it's easy to be like drawn into some of this stuff, but understanding, I think, some of the dynamics that are different about healthcare is important to know. So there's probably a lot to it, but that's my one thing.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Ali. And I feel on that note, we can have like questions that our panelists can answer. Do you want to go ahead? Thank you.
Let me give you the microphone first. Sorry.
Anyone could answer, but I think this pertains a lot to Kristen. What kind of regulatory beyond patient data privacy concerns do you have when it comes to providing care, like over technology and the use of AI, especially when it comes to like negligence or medical malpractice concerns?
Yeah, so in the therapy world, we're also regulated by our state boards, our national credentials. So there are still rules, especially in telehealth, because a patient will say, well, I'm going to be in Maine this weekend. Can we still do a session? And it's like, technically no, because, that's not a state that we're licensed in, even though absolutely we can. It's possible, but it's not legal. And so we have to draw really firm lines. And one way you can do that is looking at where a person is. You get used to the background. And if it's not the background that they're usually in, you can say, go ahead and tell me the address of where you are. And I'm in Maine. You're like, I'm not legally able to do the session. So you have to protect yourself, even if it's a short-term dissatisfier for the patient. You have to think about the longer-term dissatisfier, which you lose your license. So that's the bigger dissatisfier. So we have to really make those hard choices. It's not just FDA. There's a lot of regulatory.
Do you want to go ahead?
Really nice panel. Thank you. What I'm wondering is, what I was thinking of listening was that how AI is revolutionizing the patient care, and I probably didn't hear anything mostly about taking help of AI in hiring or doing some diligence on the founders and those kind of stuff. So what I want to hear is what kind of help with such a powerful tool AI we can get in improving patients' life, right? Providing them extraordinary care, or is there AI there to help with those kind of aspect? Or question for you, Jen, is, are you guys investing in any company or any startup that you think will change patients' life and using the tools from the AI robotics and combine? So that is what I want to hear, or wearable per se, like in muscular dystrophy space where I have worked, the patient can go to the doctor or nurse once in a while and then they do 6-minute walk test, but then that can, if we use AI and wearable, that can probably change the outcome that we read it. So I wanted to hear those things, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to start with a couple examples. So one is, I'll talk about it in dental, but it's very broadly applicable to the entire medical, and I know many doctors doing this too. So we do a lot in voice scribe with AI, which is like, game changing for providers overall, because as I think people know, like they spend a lot of time doing their notes. And, Epic originally, had a lot of different vendors in their marketplaces, and then, they're developing their own. But we have a tool, in partnership with a startup where, using AI for voice scribe, which is like, totally game changing. We also partner with some startups and growing companies imaging AI. So who's ever gone to a dentist and the dentist told you you need some sort of treatment and you're like, yeah, I don't think so. I think they're just trying to sell me something. So we partner with companies that do AI imaging. So say the dentist might say like, oh, you have some decay starting in this tooth, and you're like, I don't know if I believe them. And then on the image in the box shows up with the AI, that's showing you that decay's there, and so then you're much more likely to believe it, right? It's much more credible. And this is obviously key things like radiology, which was early users of AI. But I think that type of stuff, that AI based on all this data is telling you, right, that there is a problem there, is totally revolutionary for patient care.
Like, I mean, during the COVID, telemedicine changed people's lives.
Yep.
But I'm thinking is the patient care cost is so high here. Take the model of Singapore, where with these tools, these models, the cost can be cut drastically to pass the benefit on the patient, right?
Yeah.
So those kind of things I wanted to see here, that what is happening in those fields. Is there a startup working that will be disruptor, that will change everything there and make a humongous change in patients' lives?
I think there's a lot. There's a lot going on there. While having to navigate the healthcare system as well. Yeah, go for
Yeah,
it.
you mentioned, the muscular dystrophy and the 6-minute walk test. So this is my language. And these are things that we're doing too. And there's some platforms that we're utilizing that help us see what a patient's doing at home. Open the computer, they get into not a live video call, but more like a video session with themselves. And then we can see what they did. We can see the range of motion. We can see how fast the walking was. And that gives us insights to know how they're doing on a particular day and can be tracked over time. That never existed before. That's all brand new. And you think about someone with muscular dystrophy or stroke or spinal cord injury or brain injury, or just list goes on. Therapy is done in person at some clinic. That is such a heavy burden on the person getting there. What if they could just do it from their house? Huge,
That's the
right?
one important thing, like patient who cannot walk has to
Uh,
travel like 200 miles.
Yeah.
to go to
Yeah,
the
absolutely. And just being mindful of time and
Yeah.
so that others have questions as well. Would you like to please go ahead?
Hi, excellent panel. Thank you so much. Quick question on competitive. So one of my big challenges is finding the time and the discipline to monitor my competitive landscape, because it changes every minute, especially in this field. Direct competitors, adjacent. Have you discovered like a good tool or process? Maybe there's an AI tool that can give you this real-time hub, so you can be constantly monitoring entrants and new names in a less manual fashion. I was just wondering if there's a magical tool out there that you've come across.
I mean, I can't. I bet there is. I guess is what I would say. Based on AI, there's got to be. To be quite honest, it feels like, if you get to know AI more, you can build your own prompts to do that too. This is less probably what I know today, but there are some fairly inexpensive tools that just allow you, they're just scraping websites and things like that. But I think that do allow you to get that kind of knowledge. But I mean, quite honestly, because I do it sometimes with ChatGPT, you can go to it and get some pretty good data, and you could probably, set it up so it's sending you stuff regularly on them overall.
Yeah. Next person, maybe the one with the white shirt, I guess. Yep.
Hi, I'm Jake Del Monte. Nice to meet you. Thank you guys so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I'm a founder of a decentralized data marketplace. One of my questions would be with healthcare. Sorry, I'm really nervous. One of my questions with healthcare is the US going to fall behind because we have so many regulations, and then you got China and Russia and other countries that are so advanced with their technology and their AI, and they're on top of Web3. My curiosity with that is with this AI stuff, I know Congress, they don't know, they're so old, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know anything about tech. Like, do you guys think like it's gonna be a, it's gonna be a hard competition in the future for the US?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I find out, yeah, especially from my backgrounds across Asia and the United States. So for two parts, first of all, definitely technology will be changed, the fundamental change. They're very well and very super well talents in the United States to create these kind of technologies. And those things won't be changed too much between the kind of Asia and then United States. So that would be the first one. And each of the locations, actually, they have their regulators, just the different type and the stripes of each other. For example, Europe, they have they have CE, they have ADPR, right? It's similar. However, is that different because of the markets. Why I came to US because it's very big markets. Everyone to come here and then they unionize together. So the regulators on the other side, which is much more easy to manage. When you take a look about the Europe, so many different countries inside, and then they have their own regulator, and they have to compete each other. So sometimes for the founders, it's not easy to go to market strategies. They need to figure it out country by country. In Asia, the same situations. China is a totally different markets from the understanding, from the U.S. understanding, because they have they have their government, they have their policy. In the Southeast Asia, it's similar like Europe, they have their own countries. So from the other side, so you have think about us from the founders, what is the regulator? How is your technology protect yourself in the United States because it's much more regulator and also the patents that can protect you. So from my points of views, you will as well keep the advantage of the competitions from the different locations. And then especially for US, it's a big markets and FDA is such a powerful and a very standard. Every different locations like CE will follow the FDA. The TFDA, Taiwan's also have the TFDA, also follow the FDA. FDA have very standard and also state by state, the clinical trial, and then 501(k), this kind of regulators for that. So when the US build up these kind of standards, it's already create a fundamental of the advantage for around the world. For example, that's US dollar. It's the international trading monies already. Which is unable to say that maybe coupon will be changed something, but the fundamental of structure is the building by the United States. So I think they will keep an advantage. However, if there is some co-pilot programs, if someone is also outside of US, they still want to come to US. On the other side is also I also host an accelerator, help the international founders come to the United States. And then they need this kind of a technology and then mindsets to understanding how to build out the markets, which is most easier in the United States because it's all unit together. So still have this kind of markets, technology, and the regulator, the advantage of them. Yeah.
And we have time for one more question. And oh, yeah, the one with the waving of hands.
So my question would be around the difference between quantitative data and qualitative data that mostly in healthcare we think about the data we get as quantitative. I mean, that's what we get biometrics and you know, from wearables or intake forms and all that. But what's left out that's extremely important is the story of the patient, right? Their personal struggles and also education part, like what are they going home with between a doctor visit and the time they experience symptoms, there's no help. So what do you think about that? And I know you mentioned about the video monitoring, which is in part qualitative data gathering. But I would love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a great question. So are we getting largely quantitative data, or is anyone collecting qualitative? I think there are groups that are collecting qualitative. If it might not be collected in the same way. It's not through a drop of blood. It's through getting surveys and then having to digitize those and making, I'm using an app right now that I'm mostly satisfied with, but there's a person to talk to, and then there's a digital health side. But the digital health side is just PDFs. And so there's no collecting of the data. So I'm putting in data, but it's not being tracked. So I hear you. So I think we're getting closer to that. And it's important to have, I talked to someone at this company and said, hey, this is great information you're getting about me and that I'm getting about myself. But if it's not collected and tracked over time, then what am I going to learn from it? I'm not going to go back and look at yesterday's PDF. I need to be able to see it. But the reason it's not being done is because takes someone has to spend time and money on turning that PDF into a platform. You want to do that?
By the way, my company does that.
Great. I think it's a gap, but I wouldn't say that no one's doing it, but it's an important, recognizing that qualitative data, think about Medicare will provide bonuses for groups that are showing high satisfaction, but you got to collect it and you got to track it and you got to make it in a, if each one is on a piece of paper and then someone has to go enter it, boy, that's a slow way to get data. So that's yeah.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts, panelists, and thanks so much for being here. This brings us to a close, and please go ahead.
Yeah, so one more time, hand of applause for them. It's really awesome that you guys are able to come and do this. So just a few closing notes. We have our startup crawl here at the first floor at 6:30. You have to be on time for that if you want to participate, so just keep that in mind. We know that people are going to want to mingle, but if you could, please do that outside. We encourage mingling, but we have to get this turned around for the next event. So just keep that in mind. Lastly, Kevin Tai from 3 Circle Studio is our official photographer. So if you haven't already, he's been doing headshots, and I've been hearing good things about those. So make sure you get one of those before you leave. And that's all that I have. We'll see you at the next session. Again, thank you guys so much.
Great to meet you too.
Yeah, thanks.
So this is
Oh, hi. Hi.
that's my number.